right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Burley Love in the District here. Tristan, along with Jacob Alvarez. And Jacob, you want to tell them what we're going to get into?
Yeah, so this week, there's not much in football, but everyone's favorite owner has been subpoenaed by the U.S. government. So that's something to kind of look into. In NHL, the draft recently happened, and a free agent, we just got off of the big free agent frenzy. So we're going to talk about that and finally into baseball. It is the trade deadline, along with, I'm sure, the biggest news that has been in sports the last few days has been the Juan Soto situation. So we're going to talk about that. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, so normally right now we would be doing the all-time Eagles team, but I'm on a little bit of a break right now, so on a little personal break, so I didn't really think of it on a little vacation, so kind of missed out on it, but we're going to do that and continue that next week. So was not ready for it this week, but we are going to go back to that next week. And after that, we will go to our little NFC East preview, look at all the teams and discuss those and talk about the season coming up, because coming up starting next week is the training camp. So football's coming quickly. I was just talking to our fantasy league yesterday, starting to talk about getting that started back up. So
hopefully I do better than I did last year, because I think I was either the worst or second worst team in the league. I was pretty bad.
I won our league last year, so I won 2 leagues last year, both pay. So that money was coming in last season. But I mean, preseason's right around the corner. If you think about it, training camp is starting up relatively soon. And then you have the Hall of Fame game on August 11th. Actually, I guess that's just straight preseason. There is no Hall of Fame game. But preseason week 1 starts August 11th. So we're about 2-3 weeks away from preseason football, which not that anyone really pays attention to that, but we're getting closer to football, and that's all that really matters. I mean, I've been missing football, NFL football, college football, all of it. So I'm excited to see it come back.
Me too. I'm really excited for this NFL season. I have a bad feeling it could go like this Nats one, in the fact that I start really excited and then about a few games in I get back to reality. But I think we'll be a solid team that sits around 9 wins, 10.
I think you guys will be fighting for the division, definitely. Your team all around, the Commanders look like a decent team. So I think that overall you have a pretty good shot. I mean, it depends on your defense, though. You have Chase Young coming off of a ACL tear. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. And then with him and Montez Sweat, you could very easily have one of the best edge rushing combinations in the league, up there with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack for the Chargers. And honestly, that's all that's really coming to mind. Like the Steelers, you have TJ Watt, but that's just TJ Watt. Maybe with the Raiders, you got Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. But other than that, I mean, you're definitely looking at one of the top duos at edge rush. So
yes, and hopefully last year was a reality check, because I think the previous year we won the division, we were really hyped, and I think we kind of thought too much of ourselves, and I think that was a good – last year it sucked, but I think that was a good bring back to reality, and hopefully we can take major steps this season.
And analytically and statistically speaking, you have a better shot of winning the division now, because it's really only fighting with 3 teams, because the Cowboys won last season. So that just essentially pushes them out of the race, because hasn't been an NFC East repeat winner since 2002 through 2004. So
yeah, that is ridiculous.
You got a little bit of leniency going your way. So I definitely think the Washington will be fighting for the division. I think they might, looking overall, I think they might have a better team than Dallas too. just because
Um,
Dallas, I feel like, has so many question marks.
yeah, and I think we could, but the thing is, our players need to perform. If you were just to look at like the initial depth charts, I think we have a deeper team, but they have more high-end caliber players. Like Dak is the best quarterback in the NFC East. They have decent
That's not that
receivers.
hard.
Well, yeah, frankly. But Carson Wentz, I think, is right behind him in terms of best quarterback in the NFC East. Jalen Hurts, he's too inaccurate of a passer and too inconsistent, so I'd put him at third. He could step up and
I think depending, so it'll depend a lot on his offseason work, but I think that Jalen Hurts could be potentially be the number 2 quarterback in the division. Obviously, not putting anything over Dak Prescott just because Dak Prescott has shown that he is the best passer in the NFC East. I mean, you have people fighting for a conversation of him being one of the best passers in the league. So, I mean, you got a lot of competition there, but this is the first season that we're going to see Dak Prescott have to play without any, real like threats at wide receiver. You got CeeDee Lamb, and that's about it. Michael Gallup's coming off a torn ACL. I don't even know who their third wide receiver is at this point.
I know they drafted a rookie. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
They got Cedric Wilson went to the Dolphins. So CeeDee Lamb is looking like he's going to be their slot, but they don't really, I don't think that they really have a true number 1 right now. Like they're not having an Amari Cooper type player at receiver.
I think we're going to see a shift. I think they're going to rely on the run game a lot more. I think Tony Pollard is going to get a lot more carries than Zeke this year.
That's another big thing that I was thinking.
I think it's a switching point. It seems like Zeke's on the downslide because like early in his career, when he was young, he was fast, even though he played at a relatively high weight for a running back of his stature. He's playing at 5'11", well over 200 pounds. And so you've seen his numbers start to slowly decline, and a lot of Cowboys fans are calling for Pollard to become the running back number 1. I think if Zeke doesn't get back to his former ways, I think we can see him not being on the Cowboys in 3 years around that time period. So
that'll be around when his contract expires.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see what they do with their offense. I think they're going to go to more like running back passes and stuff like that because they obviously don't have the wide receiver core that they had before.
Which that'll make it 3, because I think that Kenneth Gainwell is going to play a bigger role in the Eagles offense, which it'll make it 3 major players in the NFC East, all from Memphis, because Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, and Kenny Gainwell, all from Memphis. But I mean, that's what the Memphis coach wanted, was he wanted that dual threat running back, and he's done a good job of producing those, being that you have 3 coming out year after year after year, especially when Antonio Gibson was a wide receiver. So, he was producing quite the core down there.
Yeah. So, but I'm actually excited about the NFC East this year because I think it's going to be really close considering all the 3 of our teams that are in the running, Cowboys, Eagles, and us, all have the easiest schedules in the league. And I think like we could easily, like any of the division games between the 3 of the teams, I can see any of the teams winning. I don't think there's a big enough gap to say, all right, that's going to be a for sure loss for one of these teams or for sure win. So I'm really excited, and I think Carson Wentz could possibly have a I'm trying to think of the word, but a career renaissance, because hopefully, I've said this before, he's on his 3rd team in however many years. Hopefully, it's a wake up call.
3 years.
Yeah, and it looks like he's putting in the work with the team. They recently went to California. Him, along with Heineke and a bunch of other offensive guys, went to California to work together. It seems like they're really gelling, and we re-signed Terry McLaurin, so he has faith in the team, obviously, and he's really happy about that. So I'm trying to be careful because I've gotten excited about Washington in the past and been disappointed. That's been happening for 20 years pretty much. So I'm looking forward to it. I definitely miss football.
Yeah, it's coming up quick, and I'm excited because I mean, football is definitely the one thing that I pay attention to most. And Yeah, so not having the off season is the worst part because the okay, I'd say the NFL season is one of the most like fun things to watch, but it's also the shortest. Like in the NFL, you have 3 months of regular season football. You get an extra month or two, month and a half if your team makes the playoffs and goes to the Super Bowl. But like then you have 7, 8, and 9 months of no football. Whereas baseball, hockey, not, I mean, we don't really pay attention to basketball, but basketball too.
I
Like
personally do, but I know you're kind of like
it's a,
fleeting interest.
yeah, it's like you only have like 3, 4 months of off season in hockey. Like hockey's already less than 3 months away from starting back up. So it's definitely one of the longer off seasons, and it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, and like football season, along with the baseball playoffs and the start of hockey season, for that reason, my favorite
October.
time of the year is September to December. That's my favorite time of the year, even though my birthday is in spring. That's my favorite time of the year because you have the beginning of football, you have the MLB playoffs, and you have the start of the hockey season.
Yeah, definitely a big month there in October. I think the official start date of the NHL was October 10th.
And that's another thing I'm actually looking forward to because the Caps have like they've made some pretty good moves. They've been aggressive. I'm still a little worried about our defense, and I still think there's a few players I think we should get rid of. But overall, this is one of the first off seasons I could say I'm very like surprised at what they did and very happy.
I'm trying to pull up the regular season start date for 2022.
For NHL, I think it's early October.
October 7th. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is the time that they've actually finally gotten back onto the right NHL schedule. But before we continue to talk about the NHL, one big thing that we should probably address was the Dan Snyder incident and how he's been subpoenaed to talk about the issues in the Washington workplace.
I think it's a great step, but I have a feeling he's just going to plead the fifth or just answer questions in a very vague way. Like he's obviously he has a great lawyer team. His lawyer team has been better than his football team. I mean, the history shows that, but yeah, at least like this is a start. This is a nice start. He's no longer running away on his yacht. And there's actually a Twitter account that popped up in the recent weeks that has tracked his yacht. And I just think that's pretty funny because he's been spending the past few weeks on his $172 million yacht, avoiding all these problems. And you gotta love Dan Schneider. Yeah.
The attorney says there's no valid basis for the subpoena, and it looks like it says the committee informed Snyder's side that it had accepted their proposal for him to testify on July 28th, but only if he accepted the service of its subpoena. So, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but to me, it sounds like he doesn't necessarily have to go in.
Well, a subpoena means you do have to go in and you're going to be under oath. I think that's why the House has really been pushing for it, and I've been pushing for it. But I think at the end of the day, even if he does testify, he's going to avoid a lot of the questions, and I think he's just going to plead the fifth.
And the reason I say it also doesn't look like it is they're really making sure that they get the point across that it says testify voluntarily. So I guess that's
going to be
different. Part. I guess that's different than being subpoenaed to court. Because I mean, you can be subpoenaed to be there, but I guess he's testifying, and that's a little different than just being there. So I guess I understand it a little bit more, but I'm reading this little article on the NBCS Washington page, and it doesn't seem like that they're that worried about it. They think he's going to be fine, and they're not really that worried about it. We are confident that Mr. Snyder will be able to provide full and complete testimony during his voluntary appearance. So yeah, they don't seem that worried about it, but this is obviously a huge story for the Washington organization, because I mean, if something does go south, then that just jumbles up the bowl a ton. So it is interesting to see what will happen there. But yeah, that's really all we got on the NFL. We'll continue the whole all-time team series next week, and after that we can start our roster analysis of the other teams, do a little season prediction, and that should carry us straight into preseason. So this, let's see, I'm going to pull up this real quick. So yeah, next week do all-time teams. It'll actually carry us through preseason, so that'll be perfect. We'll start to see team cuts and stuff, and so by the time we're starting to do Washington and the Eagles, we'll be coming up right on the NFL season, start of the NFL season. So looks like we have it planned out. September 8th is the official start of the NFL season. And yeah, we should be carried all the way through there. So I'm excited for that. But that's all I got for the NFL. You ready to move on to the NHL?
Yep, that's a lot.
Yes.
A lot happier thing to talk about for the Caps, at least. The Flyers, not so much.
I think overall, I understand it, and we'll get to that. But yeah, we'll start talking off about the Caps, because obviously the Caps made a huge signing that I think, based on what you sent me privately, you were a little excited about the Caps signing Stanley Cup champion Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, we have an experienced goalie, and I found this stat, we're paying him $5.5 a year. Looking at,
I think it's 5.25.
Yeah, looking at Vanecek's and Samsonov's new contracts, both of those goalies add up to that money. So I'm okay with the signing. Like, I don't think it would have worked at other teams that are a bit younger, but since we're a win now team, I'm fine with having that 30-year-old goalie who's experienced. And I think that's what we've been missing ever since Holtby left. Even when he left, he was on the downcline, and we never saw Vanecek or Samsonov step up to the point where you could say all right, one of those guys is the number one starter. He's experienced and he's playing really well. They were just too sporadic. So I think that's a great signing. Another great trade, we traded for Connor Brown for just a second rounder in 2024. Great signing. I think he's going to work out well, especially with our new center, Dylan Strome, which I'm going to be honest, I did not expect that whatsoever. I think that is a great addition, because Nick Backstrom, I don't think he's going to play again. Even if he does, it's not going to be the same. We're putting him on LTIR, so that frees up, I think, either 7 or 9 million a year. So I think this is really great. Dylan Strome, he's 23 years old. He's on a 1 year, $3.5 million contract. I think after this season, if it plays out well, which I think it will, we'll sign him to a longer term deal, and we'll have a 24-year-old center locked up for the next few years, which is really great for the Caps. We've gotten younger, and the two players, though, that I think we should get rid of is Lars Eller and Carl Hagelin. I think they've been more of a nuisance than they have helped. So, but I don't think, even if they're still on our team, I don't think they're going to play, because I think Connor McMichael is going to take Eller's spot as the either third or fourth line center, and Hagelin, I think he's just going to be a healthy scratch. So good job for the Caps. The only really question mark I have is our defense. I still think we should try and fix a few things there. We just need to either play better or shore up a few things, but overall, very good offseason for the Caps.
So looking at this, because I wanted to get what the Caps would be freeing up, says by placing Backstrom on LTIR provides the team with cap relief. His 9.2 million cap hit will stay on the payroll, but LTIR allows the team to exceed the salary cap ceiling. So yeah, frees up 9.2 million in cap, which obviously when you're bringing up players from the Hershey Bears that are, young guys, their cap hit isn't going to be as much. So you're still going to have a little bit of cap to work with during the season, which is going to be huge, come trade deadline time, if you're trying to make a run, especially now that you have your experienced goalie, like you said, in Darcy Kemper. So yeah, putting him on LTIR does help a ton. And by the time you get to the end of the season, it won't really matter because NHL has that like line where the cap doesn't really affect the team anymore, which is why, Tampa was 15 mil over cap when they won the Stanley Cup. So, but yeah, I'd say there were a couple big signings I'd say Dylan Strome was huge. I'm still a little bit weary on Darcy Kemper. I mean, I know he just won the Stanley Cup, but if you try to tell me that he's even going to have a relatively close defense, like talent wise, to what he had in Colorado, no shot. Like, I think this has potential to go down as a terrible signing. Now, that's not just me as a Philadelphia fan saying that. I think just looking at it, like, first off, there is no defenseman in the league that even comes close to Cale Makar.
Nope.
I mean, so Cale Makar is an entirely different animal by himself. And there is no player in the entire Caps organization that can even add up to what Cale Makar is. So that alone helps. I just think the Avalanche had a very well-built defensive structure, and I don't think that the Caps can even come close to that. And so
I understand that, but
I feel like it might have been a little bit of too big.
I still think we need to offer that, but I think we have a lot of defensive forwards that are going to help out with that, like Connor Brown and Strome. That's going to be a great addition. I think they're both great two-way players. With Tom Wilson, he is coming off a bad knee injury, but since our new additions, I think when he has the time he needs to fully recover, because come playoff time, we're really going to need him, because I think that's one of the things we were really missing in the Panthers series. His offense, as well as his defense and his physical presence, he really does make a difference when he's not taking people's heads off. So I think that we could, I think it could be a bad signing if our defense does not improve. But if it does, in terms of how Peter Laviolette stylistically has them like playing, if that makes any sense, I think Kemper could be a good signing, because it's in 3 or 4 years. I don't think he's I think our team's going to be past the point where we're really good. So I think he could be gone by that point. I think this is a win now move. And in the short term, I think it has a good chance of working out.
So you made a comparison to Holtby, and I think that's a big comparison here, because obviously after they both won a cup going into their free agency year, they both get big contracts coming off of free agency. So Darcy Kemper is 32 now, and so is Braden Holtby. So that means Braden Holtby he's turning 33 this season, but that means he was about, in 2018 when you guys won, he was about 28. So I mean, Braden Holtby was a little bit younger when he got signed, but his Darcy Kemper's season stats last season were insane. 37, 12, and 4 in 57 games played, a 2.54 goals against average, not too bad, and an insane 921 save percentage with 5 shutouts. Like, don't get me wrong, those are great numbers, but again, like, you got to look at the difference in defenses that you have. You have Colorado defense and the Caps defense. Like, for me, I just don't know how that'll work out. I'd say if he hovers around a 900 save percentage, I'd say within 10 points of 900 either way, then you're getting a good season out of him, in my personal opinion, because I do think that he was just the kind of goalie he was, that I don't know how much that really helped. So again, he wasn't obviously on the greatest of teams all the time, but he looks good in his long season starts. He has 3 seasons over 30 starts, and in those seasons, it was 2014 and 20 through 2015, started 31 games, went 14, 12, and 2, and had a 260 goal against average and a 905 save percentage with 3 shutouts. In 2018, 2019, started for Arizona. He went 55 games, 27, 20, and 8, and had a 233 goals against average, 925 save percentage. Really good season there. And then obviously this past season, which I just talked about. So it's not terrible, but at the same time, he's not the, prettiest of names in between the pipes, in my opinion.
I don't think we really need one. So last season, Vitek Vanacek had a save percentage of 908, and Ilya Samsonov had a save percentage of 896.
How many games? How many games?
Okay. For Samsonov, he had 44 games played, and for Vanacek, he had 42.
Okay, so they pretty much split the workload.
Yeah, and we don't need a 930 save percentage. I just think a good number for him would be around 915. And when come playoff time, he has the experience. I think we don't need Carey Price goaltending or Patrick Waugh or Don McCash. We don't need that. We just need good, solid goaltending. Because our offense, I still maintain we should have won that Panthers series. We really should have. But one thing that killed us in some of the games was goaltending, but also think our defense played really bad. And I think Laviolette really needs to address that, whether it's just changing how he has them playing or whether it's getting a new defenseman. I don't know, but we don't need outstanding goaltending. And I think Kemper can be that guy who can maybe get us back to the second round.
Yeah. Like you said, you guys should have beat the Panthers. The Panthers showed that they really weren't all that everyone thought they were. And maybe this is the solid start that you guys need in it, because he's a solid goaltender all around, but only time will tell. Obviously you're going to have those guys like me who are looking at just him as a goalie, as opposed to looking at him
in the system.
In a system. Exactly. So that's just me personally. Going over to the Flyers signings, they signed a couple players, but no one really big. And I think Chuck Fletcher is going to be taking a lot of heat for it after he said in his press conference during the season that he was going to be making a aggressive retool, and he didn't really do much. He signed, this is going to be a really hard name for me to try to say, so I'm sorry if I just absolutely butcher this, but Nicholas Deslauriers. He used to play for Minnesota, but he's a brawler type, Tom Wilson type that'll just go get in fights, not really worrying about his punishment. They're bringing back Justin Braun on defense. And then they also re-signed Morgan Frost and Isaac Ratcliffe. Isaac Ratcliffe is a bigger guy. He's still in the system, not really that big of a player, but I'd say, okay, so there are two big things, and number 2 is a 2A, 2B situation. So number 1 is Morgan Frost's new deal. Now, the reason that is so big is because with no big playmaker like Johnny Gaudreau, like Philip Forsberg, who re-signed in Nashville, the Morgan Frost is likely going to be a number 1, number 2 center. Actually, he'll probably be number 3, but still, he's getting a lot of pressure put on him, and he still has yet to perform. He's been injured and has been having just rough seasons in his entire career. So he's got a lot to prove, but he's got a new deal. $800,000 contract. $800,000 contract. Yeah, I said that right. And it's a one-way, which means he's staying in the NHL and 1 year. So this is you need to do it this season. I mean, he was drafted because he was a Giroux type playmaker that could, pass the puck around, but also score goals occasionally if you needed him to. So this is a big season for him, because if he doesn't perform, I don't think he's coming back to the Flyers next season. So he needs to stay healthy and he needs to put some points up. Otherwise, he's going to be walking and he might not see many days in the NHL after that. So this is a big deal for him and a big deal for the team, because obviously he's going to be playing a big part being a third center. And then my 2A, 2B situation. So with the addition of Justin Braun, I also am worrying about the defense as a whole now, because they also traded for Tony DeAngelo from the Hurricanes, which I'll go into that a little bit real quick. That is a controversial trade. Everyone, there's some stuff going up, on social media about it, but overall, like he's the Philadelphia. What I like about what Chuck Fletcher's doing, he's bringing in Philadelphia type guys. I mean, you look at the guys that he's bringing in there, like dirty, scrappy, not dirty, but they're scrappy type.
Dirty.
They're scrappy type guys. Desaliers, he's a line brawler, he's a tough guy. Tony DeAngelo, he's a, getting down and dirty type player, but he's a two-way player. Good offensive defenseman, but can play defense when you need him to. Well, obviously you need him to, being that he is a defenseman, but he plays well. And I heard an interview with him and he's like, he grew up in Philadelphia and he was saying, he goes, I couldn't say this before, but obviously playing in Philadelphia was my dream, because Philadelphia, not only was it my hometown team, but Philadelphia was my type of team because of the way that they play. They're the Broad Street Bullies. So that's definitely the way he looks. And there was a little bit of controversy due to some of the stuff that was going on with the Rangers, that he had made racist comments and was getting in fights with his teammates and all that stuff. And in an interview I heard with him, he's like, look, obviously, tensions got the best of me and I said what I said, but there's nothing you can do about it. I apologized. I didn't mean what I said, but I did say it. He's like, overall, I love my teammates. I want to work with them. I want to win with them. So he came out and he basically made the point to say, I apologized and that I didn't mean anything I said, and I just want to win. So that's I basically, personally, I think, you let him in with a clean slate, in my opinion. I mean, he hasn't done anything here yet, so don't entirely destroy the man until, he's proven what he deserves. He did good in Carolina for that season. So I'm excited, but like I said, that 2A, 2B situation now leading to trouble on the blue line, because now you have more heads than you know what to do with. You got Ivan Provorov and Ryan Ellis, and Ryan Ellis is a big question because we don't know what's going on with him. You don't know if he's whether he's injured, what his whole situation is. But if they put him on LTIR, you free up $6 million in cap space. So that's also a possibility, but we have to see how far he comes along on his injury. So Ivan Provorov, Ryan Ellis, projected line number 1. Projected line number 2, you have Rasmus Ristolainen and Travis Sanheim. And then you have, for your third line, I guess you would have Cam York and Justin Braun. And then you also have Tony DeAngelo, but you're paying Tony DeAngelo, so you kind of need him to play too. He's kind of getting some good money. I'll pull up his contract real quick, but you're paying him, and this is not the guy that you just want sitting on your bench, especially when he's getting paid $10 million for the next $5 million for the next 2 years. 2-year, $10 million contract. Gave up picks for him because he was a RFA. So definitely a guy that you want to see play. All right, so just real quick, I do want to put the trade up for just so because it was a RFA trade. So Tony DeAngelo and a 2022 7th round pick coming to the Flyers for a 2024 second round pick, 2023 third round pick, and a 2022 fourth round pick. So nothing too big given up except for that 2024 second round pick. But like I said, a guy that you want to see playing because he is getting paid $5 million a year, and you gave up draft picks for him that can be used in the future.
Yeah, it feels like seems like a win now move for a team that thinks it's in like win now mode, but really isn't. It's been strange for the Flyers because Chuck Fletcher, when the Johnny Gaudreau like free agency stuff was going on, he said that the Flyers had no cap room, and I think that kind of it shed a light that you don't really have cap. You don't really have any top prospects. You have a few good ones that you can think, okay, they can become great players, but nothing like superstars. At least it seems like that.
No hidden Giroux or
it's a tough situation. Is you don't have a cap. Guys like JVR are still on the team. You don't really have any like top forwards. So I just think it's a strange situation for the Flyers.
And what made it even weirder was the fact that they bought out Oscar Lindblom's contract, which freed up about $3 million cap space. He's now with the Sharks. You know, that one's a hard one to see go away. You know, the flat cap obviously still having an impact on the league, but Oscar Lindblom was a fan favorite, I think, for everyone, you know, once he was going through his cancer treatments and everything. But that one's a hard one to see go. But they bought out his contract, and it's just that they could bring in Justin Braun for a 1 year, $1 million contract. Like, another one that you would have liked to see was JVR get bought out. That would have freed up $7 million. So if you take that and then you sign, you know, like you signed Johnny Gaudreau, how much is he making in Columbus? Because he did sign with Columbus. So that's not a signing I like to see, because he's going to be torturing the Metropolitan Division now. Dude, Gaudreau is such a hard name to spell. Johnny Gaudreau is making 7 years, $68 million.
Around 9 million per cap hit.
Base salary 7.75, cap hit 9.75. So if they were to let Lindblom walk and try to buy out JVR, they would have enough money to get Gaudreau. But then their defense would have been. But I mean, I feel like you could still get a decent third line defenseman for like really cheap.
And one thing that I think would have been good for them to do. It'd be hard to get him because you have to give up a decent amount, but I wouldn't have traded for DeAngelo, and I would try and lure Tkachuk out of Calgary because it doesn't really seem like he wants to be there. He's an RFA, but as we've seen with DeAngelo, you can trade for RFAs, and there's a lot of rumors going around about Tkachuk, and I think that he would have fit your team. He's a good goal scorer. He's tough. He's good all-around player, but you didn't do it. You did moves that I didn't think you should have gone for. Like Tkachuk, he could have been that star. Not saying it would have been easy, but it would have at least been nice for Flyers fans to at least see that they could try and go for him. But yeah, I don't know. I still think like your forwards, I think you're not the same problem where you're going to struggle to have a true number one scorer.
Matthew Tkachuk is another guy that fits the mold of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Exactly.
But you're not trading what the Flyers traded for Tony DeAngelo and getting the same stuff in return. Matthew Tkachuk is a way better player per capita, because obviously he plays a different position and he plays a different style of game. But I mean, he's a better player at his position than Tony DeAngelo is. Yeah. So you can't trade a fourth rounder, a third rounder, and a second rounder and get Matthew Tkachuk. You have to trade one, maybe even 2 first rounders for Tkachuk, and then some.
If I was the Flyers, I would have given up our 5th pick, maybe another first if they're asking for it and something else, but it would have been a perfect fit because he played all 82 games last year, so he's durable. He had 42 goals, 62 assists, 104 points. That had the potential to propel your first line into a very good line. And if you put him on the power play, he's going to make all the other players better. And to top it all off, he's 24 years old.
You know what I do like about the lack of moves, though, by Chuck Fletcher? This might not make sense, but I think in my head it does personally. But you know what I like about Chuck Fletcher's lack of moves and how I think it could actually help the organization? He's putting faith in the players that he has.
Yeah, so maybe that's going to be like a morale boost for young
think about it. Okay, but you have multiple players, Ivan Provorov, who he's not like an elite talent at defenseman, and he's not a Norris Trophy winning defenseman right now. He has the potential to get there, but I mean, still all around, he is a workhorse. He's really good at a lot of things that he does at defense, but he's not a Victor Hedman, a Cale Makar, one of those type players, but still, he's a really good defenseman that they have locked down right now. He's a solid number 1 defenseman. He's playing 25 to 30 minutes a night. Like, you're not going to get numbers like that from Tony DeAngelo or something like that. So he's a player that is really good at what he does. Another player from that same draft class, Travis Konechny, he scored 24 goals in 48 games one season. So, he has potential. And if he can get back to his goal scoring form, he was an all-star that year. You have Joel Farabee, another young guy who has proved he can score in the NHL. Like, you're having these players who are still young, and you're like, look, last season wasn't a great season, but if you look at the same time, last season, there were a million injuries. So you take these young guys and just let them play it out. I mean, you still have Kevin Hayes, Couturier, Cam Atkinson. They all have experience. They know what they're doing. And you let the young guys play under them. I like that Chuck Fletcher kind of gave them that, like, look, I'm not going to go for anyone big because I have faith in you. Like, you might not be getting a superstar, but in 2019, when the Flyers were the hottest team, 2020, when the Flyers were the hottest team in the NHL, like making a roaring comeback for the Metropolitan Division, they didn't have a superstar. Their closest thing to a superstar was Giroux, and he was an assist machine, but they didn't have a 50-30 goal scorer. They had a couple 20 goal scorers, but they were a evened out all down the lineup team. And so I think that's what Chuck Fletcher is trying to go for here. He's like, look, we don't need a superstar. I have faith in the guys we have. You guys are an even line out all across the board. I expect all 4 lines to be scoring goals. Like, it's just kind of, here's the comparison. It's a little bit different. It's a different sport, but I was just talking to a Braves fan, and he said the top 3 of the Braves lineups had like 120 RBIs. The middle 3 of their lineup had like 118 RBIs. And then the bottom 3 of their lineup had like 122 RBIs. Everyone was equal. And that's what I think Chuck Fletcher's trying to do. Like, you want a total of like 50 goals from each line, from all around the board. And I think that's a good equation to win. So, I mean, personally, that's what I liked about their team in 2019. You didn't have a set out superstar, but I'm not in NHL GM, so we'll see how it works out. But I do think Chuck Fletcher does have an idea of what he's doing. His dad worked in the NHL as a GM, so he's had experience around it. And it's just, I feel like it's a as the 76ers would say, a trust the process,
You understand where you're coming from, but to replicate a run like that is going to be very difficult. And you're banking on a lot of these guys returning to that form. And I just think it's going to be difficult. Not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult. And teams like that, like, I'm trying to think of the last like
And
cup winner that had a team that was built like that, where they didn't really have a top end superstar, but they were just decent all throughout.
the Lightning,
They have top superstars though.
they
That's
do, but I
different.
mean, still, like their entire team, aside from that first line where you have, aside from those top three players, where you have Victor Hedman. Oh, well, he's a defenseman, but
Yeah. But they have
I guess the
Stamkos.
Lightning
They
are
have
a bad
Braden
example
Point. They have
because,
Nikita Kucherov. They have
yeah,
top
Steven
stars like
Stamkos.
that.
Okay, I guess that's a bad example. The
Yeah,
Blues,
but yeah,
who who
the
were the Blues?
Blues.
You had
But
Ryan O'Reilly, who
he's really stepped up for him, and
I
like
would
if they
compare
need to make a
closer to Giroux.
run.
He was a little bit better than Giroux defensively, but I would say
Yeah,
he was comparable to Giroux. So that
comparable to Drew, and you need a player to like a few players to make really good runs, like have really great stretches, and I just think it's going to be a little difficult. I would have, if I was a Flyers fan, I would have liked to see them try and get Kachuk or maybe even JT Miller. I
yeah,
think
he had a
that
good season.
yeah, he had a good season, and he's not really in like a great situation with the Canucks because there's even at the deadline there's a lot of rumors about him. I just would have liked to try and just go for that player and then say, hey, you young guys, I'm trusting you, but I'm gonna need like some step up in
Spark,
production.
a
And
little bit of a spark.
hopefully that's what Tortorella will bring because he's not going to sugarcoat things. And I think you're going to either see a lot of these young players step up to the pressure or crumple under it. So
One
he's
one
going to
last
weed out the players.
one last thing that I have along those lines is you were saying, like you're banking on those people to go back to their forms. I'm not saying that you need Ivan Provorov to go. I'd say that season he was playing towards a Norris Trophy candidate level. Like I said, Travis Konechny was gonna score 30 goals that season, no doubt. Maybe he had potential to score 40, maybe if he got really hot, uh, if they played a full season. But I'm not saying that they need to get back to that, but I'm saying, if Travis Konechny does go back to a 30 goal score, he hasn't been same since that break, since the bubble. If you get him to just go back to a 20 to 30 goal score, Ivan Provorov continues to just be really good at what he does. Like, I'm not saying you have to go back to all those players being at their top peak form. Obviously, that would be ideal, but as long as they still like get close to what they were at, then I'd say overall it's a winning solution, a winning equation would be the best way to put it. And like you said, I think Torts could really help try to pull that out of them.
Yeah, he's either going to show that a lot of the players aren't up to the challenge, or he's going to show like really get the players into that idea of, all right, we're going to work hard and, we're going to try and become a winner.
The last couple things that I wanted to talk about real quick was the draft, because obviously we had the draft last week, 2 weeks ago now. It has been a little bit of a break, like I said, but a couple big things for the draft. I think the biggest thing was the fact that Shane Wright dropped all the way to the number 4 pick. I thought the Flyers were going to get him. I was sitting there as he's just dropping. I'm like, oh my gosh, are we going to get Shane Wright at number 5? And obviously the Kraken took him at 4. And I was like, that's a little bit rough. The guy that the Flyers got at number 5, I haven't entirely looked at him as a whole, but he looks like he's a big guy.
He has a great name.
Yeah, Cutter Gauthier. But
Cutter.
He looks like he's a big guy. I'm trying to pull up his stats real quick. But I want to say he's like 6'4", 6'2", 201 pounds, a bigger frame, and he's a power forward, and he's more of a goal scorer, which is something that I think they need. He definitely thinks shoot first, so that's something that I'm excited to see. Another thing I saw, this was just like a fun stat that they had put up on the screen when they drafted him, was he can. Oh, I am sorry. They he hit a golf ball 280 yards with both hands. So lefty and righty. But he most of the stuff that I'm looking at, 2020 to 2021 in 32 games in the USHL, 32 games, 12 goals, 9 assists. I don't know what US national teams, 44 games, 20 goals, 17 assists. Juniors, 19 goals, 9 assists. US national U18 team, 34 goals, 31 assists. So I mean, he's definitely a shoot first guy and would rather put up goals than assists, which I like to see because that's what the Flyers need. But I think overall, pretty good pick from an outsider standpoint, who doesn't really watch youth hockey. But he's going to go play one season in Boston College, and then I think they're going to bring him up. So getting one year of NCAA hockey under his belt, I think will be huge.
That's going to be a big help.
Yeah, because NCAA hockey is probably one of the best things that you can do before going into the NHL. Because obviously that level of play is insane. You have anything on the Capitals draft pick?
I need to look up his name. It's a very difficult name.
And while you're doing that, did you see the Canucks drafted another Elias Pettersson?
Nice.
What a name by the Capitals first pick, or from the Capitals first pick.
Yeah, it's Ivan Miroshnichenko.
Miro Shinichenko is what it looks like.
Yeah, he's a left wing. Looks like more of a goal scorer. So hopefully that works out. Then we drafted a defenseman, 4 more offensive players, and 1 defenseman in the 7th round. But hopefully it turns out well. I don't really have a lot to say because I don't watch a lot of youth hockey as well. I tried to, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's another Russian left wing, so it seems like we may be trying to find the next Ovi. Yeah, he's a 6'1". I hate when you click on an article and it tries to make you sign in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's about 6'1", 180 pounds.
The Flyers had 5 draft picks and drafted 4 offensive players. So they know that they're having trouble. But that's all that there really is for the drafts. That's the NHL is a hard thing to gauge talent-wise because they're young. So
and especially with this draft class, it's a lot harder than in past years.
Yeah. So with that, I think anything else for the NHL from you?
Nope, not for the NHL, but boy, do we have a lot to talk about in terms of baseball.
So we're going to go over to the MLB first. I do want to let you guys know to go check out Bomb Burger Food Truck in Luckett's. They go to Brossman's farm stand every weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. They're there from about 11 to 6-ish. So go check them out at Brossman's farm stand in Luckett's, Virginia. Really good food, really good burgers. 2 college kids grinding over there. So definitely go check them out. Won't regret it.
Yeah, check them out, guys.
And so, yeah, going over to the MLB, I think the biggest thing we have to talk about first off is Juan Soto. How big of a man you have to be in order to turn down $440 million.
Yeah, but I just need to talk about this. First off,
he needs to put food on the table, bro.
Yeah, woo. But first off, I really hate the learners now because they're the ones who leak the contracts. situation, and Soto and his agent wanted to keep that private, but they leaked it, and it seems like they did it to try and make him look bad, which first off is not a great move. Like, it's just such a mess. And did you hear that apparently they made him fly commercial, and he arrived at 1:30 a.m. on the day of the home run derby from a commercial flight? That is sad, and that is petty as hell by the Lerners. And it seems like things are going downhill, because I think that the relationship is starting to sour, because apparently a few weeks ago, Soto was told that we'll never trade you. Now it seems like, all right, we're entertaining trades now.
Well, that's probably because he won't, like, at the same time. Okay, look at it. Like, if you're the Nationals, you're trying to sign this guy to a long-term deal, but at the same time, he's like not giving in. You obviously, if you can avoid it, you don't want to be giving up $500 million. That's a lot of money.
But
It's not like the Nationals have the greatest payroll in the league. But
we can still afford to offer somebody over $400 million, though, apparently. But
so you're trying not to do that. So when they're saying like, oh, we're not going to trade you, because, they're thinking like, oh, we give him 400 and some million dollars, he'll accept it, we're chilling. Now, he keeps on declining that. And they're like, well, if another team that wants to come in and, offer him that money, have at it. And then we're going to get draft picks out of it. And a lot of them. And
you can't trade draft picks in the MLB, so it'd pretty much be you get an entire prospect team.
Yeah, you're getting all kinds of prospects. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know you couldn't trade draft.
I didn't till like this or last year.
But so they're like, hey, we're getting an entire farm system for Juan Soto if we have to trade him, and we don't have to worry about paying him all this money, and we're good now. So I mean, I can see where they're coming from when they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to trade you, but come 3 denied contracts later, they're like, all right, maybe we have to trade you.
I can understand, and I've kind of accepted the fact that he's going to get traded. As long as it's a good trade, I'll be maybe okay with it, as long as it works out. But it's still, it sucks that we're pretty much going to let go of the modern day Ted Williams. Before that, we let Scherzer go. We let Rendon go, which was actually a good move because he sucks now. We let Turner go, and we let Harper go. And out of the 2019 World Championship team, the player that we signed to a huge deal was Steven Strasburg, which was a huge mistake. I still don't understand why we did that. I feel like we felt like we had to do that just because he's on the team for a while. And it looks like he may not ever play again, because he's gotten some bad injuries as of recently, but it's still just so annoying. But if we were to trade him, I think the Mariners could be a good destination because they have good prospects. And I think I want Julio Rodriguez. If he does go to the Mariners, I would want him in return.
Crazy.
I think that would be great. And add in a few more like top level prospects. I think that could work out for us in the future. If that does happen, I would like to see them keep Josh Bell. I think that I would like them to do that, but who knows what in the world we're doing. I really don't know. But I was at the game the day that whole thing was announced, and he was still getting cheers, which I was a little surprised about. I thought it'd get booed. But yeah, it's a really difficult situation. I mean, I got this bobblehead Juan Solo. In a year, this is probably not going to be accurate. That's the part. So
yeah, definitely. Like, I will say he's got some guts denying that many
$440 million. I heard so many people saying, let somebody offer me $440 million.
Honestly,
like come on.
Can you imagine having the mentality to be like, nah, I'm too good for 440.
I'm worth $60 million more. Pay me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that is insane. Yeah, offer me $440 million. I'll be taking that before you can even finish the sentence.
If I heard million, I'd be like, okay, where do I sign?
Yeah, honestly. In my type of lifestyle, I think I might just need $1 million to survive.
Pretty much.
But finishing that up, talking about baseball,
Kyle Schwarber sucks.
I wouldn't say Kyle Schwarber sucks.
I mean, he lost to Albert Pujols in the first round of the home run derby, which I was extremely happy about because I was
Albert
rooting for
Pujols
Pujols.
is also one of the best home run hitters in MLB history.
That's cool, but he's 42 years old, Tristan.
That's cool, but he's still one of the best. Baseball isn't one of those sports where you have to be young to be good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree, but Schwarber, you think he'd have the better stamina, but I just think like he kind of dropped the ball with it, the proverbial ball, but I still think he really underperformed. I mean, I'm glad he did. I mean, that was a fun home run derby to watch, but I think Schwarber kind of.
Hey, you know what matters? He can lose all the home run derbies, but guess what? He's still number 2 in the MLB in home runs.
Because he's more of like an actual like fastball pitcher. He's better at hitting in game versus BP.
Exactly, which I would like that 10 times better than a home run derby.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
You could take your Juan Soto home run derby win and run away with it and be all happy and everything when, he's not even on the Nationals next year. And I'll be sitting there,
You'll be sitting there with a mediocre team.
Hey, I mean, the Phillies are still in it, which I will say, like,
I'm surprised they are.
Yeah, frankly. Exactly. I thought, frankly, I thought even as a Phillies fan, I still thought they were somehow going to drop the ball with Harper out. I was like, there is no way that they'll stay intact. But they're 49-43, still third in the division, over 500, 8.5 games back of the Mets, 6 games back of Atlanta, which I think they're still in the wild card. So they're not even they're exactly where I thought they'd be. I said they'd probably be a decent team. I said they had potential, but that probably means that they would, that probably means they'd underperform. And what did I say? So they're right where they are, and they're not doing too shabby for Bryce Harper being out. Like I said last time, Derek Hall stepping in huge with Bryce Harper's absence. Like I just said, Kyle Schwarber, one of the top home run hitters in the league.
Even though he's striking out a lot. I mean, he has a 2.8 average, and he has 120 strikeouts in 90 games.
Schwarber?
Yeah, 120 strikeouts in 90 games.
You know who was going insane against the Blue Jays was Bryson Stott. He was their top prospect. He plays shortstop, especially. Listen to all these injuries that the Phillies have. So Zach Eflin, starting pitcher, who Ranger Suarez, another starting pitcher, both injured. Connor Brogdon, one of the bigger names in the bullpen for the Phillies, injured. Bryce Harper, starting right fielder, MVP candidate, injured. Alec Boehm, starting third baseman, injured. Gene Segura, starting second baseman, injured. Johan Camargo, huge utility player, injured. I think that was 6 injuries that I just listed off of big players that, are kind of important to the team. So I'd say they're doing a pretty decent job for having a ton of injuries and being in the situation that they are. But Bryson Stott against the Blue Jays, I just want to pull up what he was doing. So in the second game, I'll pull up the first game in a sec. In the second game, he was 1 for 3, not the greatest, but still had 2 RBIs. And I think he had a home run. And in the night before, I'm pulling up the night before real quick. Night before was a closer game, which was surprising. They lost 4-3 in this game, but that's really good considering that they didn't have a starting pitcher that game. They went straight from the bullpen and only lost by 1, which was kind of surprising. But in this game, Stott 2 for 4 with a RBI, 2 runs, 1 strikeout, but hit a home run in the 4th inning to keep the game close because it was definitely getting scary there at the end. But yeah, Stott had 2 home runs in 2 games. When Joe Girardi was managing, he didn't have 1 until he got fired. So Stott was catching fire in that series, which is something that he needs to do, especially since he's like top prospect for the Phillies. Well, was.
Yeah, so credit to your pitching. I think your starters have really stepped up, and I think that's one of the big reasons as to why you're going through this great stretch. It should be interesting what you guys do in the second half, not only with how your players perform, but how you'll handle the trade deadline. Because I don't know. Like, I don't know if you guys will be sellers or buyers, because I think it's still hard to tell. I think I'm leaning towards that you'll be buyers.
They're trying to make a run now. So I'm not trying to make a run, but they're trying to.
They think that they're within a reach of playoffs.
Yeah. And Johan Camargo came back. So I'm going through older games and Alec Boehm's back. So, okay. So a couple of those players were not injured as I said them, but still they were out for a while. So they still did play a factor in that. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they did have all those injuries and they're staying in the playoff race is huge. And they're starting to get some batting from other players like Stott, like Realmuto hit a home run a couple days ago, so that was big too.
He needs to get back into his good ways.
Yeah, he's been struggling with the bat. Like, he hasn't been putting up the numbers that he was last season. He's still batting 252, which isn't terrible, but I mean, last season it's
like this season, it's a hard argument to say he's been a top 5 catcher, because I don't think he has. And
all around, no. Defensively, still yes.
Defensively, yes. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I think are a little bit better, but this season offensively, he just really hasn't been as good as we thought he was going to be, or as we expected.
I would have to double check this, but I saw something, and I don't remember if it was like if it was just the Phillies catchers, or if it was the game that I was watching and it was the 2 catchers in that game. But there was one game I was watching, and the 2 catchers that they were talking about, the broadcasters, they were like, oh yeah, these are 2 of the best catchers in the league defensively. And I looked up the stats, and those 2 catchers had the 2 best caught stealing numbers in the league. And it's annoying me that I can't find it.
I'm pretty sure Keibert Ruiz.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the national.
He's at the top of the list.
Yeah, it was us talking about it, actually, now that I think about it. Realmuto and Keibert Ruiz, top 2 catchers in caught stealing, both with 16. So defensively, I'd take Realmuto over a lot of people still.
I would too, but I would still take Ruiz, mainly for the fact that he's young and he's showing potential. But if I was a win now team, I guess you can maybe say Realmuto, but as I still would prefer Ruiz.
Well, I mean, in your situation, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would. It's a little skewed because I just want a lot of young guys at this point. I don't want a lot of established guys that aren't going to be good in maybe 5 or 6 years.
The Phillies, I will say, have done a good job with their catchers. Even their backup catcher is a really good. He was showing off the arm a couple like last week when they were playing the Blue Jays. They tried to steal on him, and he got the ball there when Stott had the ball. Stott had time to catch the ball, do a little spinorama, do a little dance, and still tag the runner out. It was they've done good with their catchers. So yeah, defensively they're playing well. Their bats are kind of what need to step up, because they're still, like that little like lack of energy in their bats, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there's more to be wanted from their bats. But with that, that's all I have for our episode this week. Anything else from you?
I'm gonna end off. I've talked a lot of shit about the Nats this year, and there frankly hasn't been a lot of good to talk about. But when I was at the game, do you know in right field how the Nats have their bullpen, and right above that there's like a covered seating area? Well, that's where we were sitting. We were sitting right up against the fence. We looked down and we could see the bullpen, and that was a really cool thing to see. We saw them, and we had an interaction with a player. So Carl Edwards Jr. is a reliever on the Nats. He was on the Cubs World Series team, and actually a few days ago, he had a great relieving performance where he had 2 innings and only 1 hit allowed. So he was doing this thing where he was flicking sunflower seeds, and they were going pretty far. Well, one of them hit my dad square in the chest, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And we had a little interaction, and after the inning ended, he threw us this ball. So I think it's a little cool story, and we had a nice little interaction. So it's a little bit of positive to end off with, and otherwise pretty bad season.
I have to say, I think baseball players probably have the most fun in their sport. I think it's because they have so much time to do it.
Yeah.
They have so much time to mess around. But I do think they have some of the most fun in any league.
It was cool. Like the relievers, they were interacting with a lot of fans. There's this Braves fan that was interacting with the bullpen catcher, and it was really funny. So yeah, I think that's really cool to see.
Yeah. So Phillies going up against the Cubs starting on Friday. Obviously they're on the All-Star break. So with that, we are going to end it off there. Anything else from you?
That's it.
All right. You guys can follow us on our Instagram at BL in the DC. We do our best to get out, updates and stuff on that, new signings, trades, stuff like that. You can follow us on there. We also post clips of the podcast when they come out. You can DM us questions and comments on there. You can email us at blinthedc@gmail.com. You can email us questions and comments that we can bring on here. Made a TikTok, and we'll be posting not dances, but we will be posting little clips of podcasts, and maybe some different stuff on there where we do like a little short clip about someone being signed or a trade and talk about that. That'll come out on the day of instead of waiting to talk about it on a podcast. So you can follow us on there, and then you guys can rate us on Apple and Spotify and leave a review on Apple. And with that, we are going to end it off there, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.